The question we're going to be asking our eminent guests on the panel is how the UK is doing in terms of becoming an exemplar market and destination for production of electrified vehicles. Lots of interesting viewpoints, no doubt, on the agenda for discussion. Just a few highlights, if I can, to position that debate. From a supply and demand point of view, firstly, supply, there's lots of positives. There were more than 30 new BEV products coming to market last year. The segment coverage of each brand is starting to be filled out. There are a lot more vehicles now, 40 under £30,000. So there's a growing array of choices for people to go electric. And increasingly, people are looking at the products coming to the market just saying, wow, what a fantastic car. Not, that's an electric car, it's just a great car. From a demand perspective, 62% of consumers are telling us in recent research that they plan to go electric for their next car. That might be a used car, it might be a new car, and it might not necessarily be tomorrow, that's their next purchase. But that's very positive, and that's up on 40-odd% that we would see typically last year. So that's growth, positive demand. Keir also mentioned used EVs. Didn't actually get the question on used EVs, so I'm going to answer it for him. Used EVs are turning very well. Used EVs actually turned quicker as a fuel type than petrol and diesel last year. They did the year before as well. The fastest turning segment on our site was the 3 to 5-year-old EV category, and it was the year before too. So there is great demand for those products, but there's a price point for them as well. There is that 17 percentage point gap that Mike touched on earlier. It's actually down more recently to 15 percentage points on new EVs. On used, they fall very fast. They get to a depreciation level where they are at parity, and they therefore attract lots of attention. That's the positive. And I think it highlights equally the next challenge I'll finish with, which is that there was some recent research you may have seen out just this week that highlighted that consumers are saying that most of them, well actually 48%, I take that back, 48% agree with the ZEV mandate. They'd like it to stay as it is. But the majority of those people do so on the condition that EVs are the same price. And they aren't in the new car market for the reasons that we know are very challenging for manufacturers. So clearly, we're going to talk a lot about those challenges in as much as Mike has highlighted very aptly and appropriately the fact that nobody, I think, in the retailer world or the manufacturer world challenges the destination, the ultimate goal, but they do challenge the speed of implementation and maybe the route that we're taking to get to that goal. So I'm going to just play a little video here and ask my panelists to come up and join me, and we'll continue that discussion. Thank you.
The UK is seeing some momentum when it comes to electrification, but what we need now is clear, stable policies, positive consumer incentives, and investment in public charging, and this will make EVs more affordable and widely adopted.
To deliver a greener future, we need consistency of messaging, incentives and infrastructure to support and make us competitive.
At Toyota, we see carbon as the real enemy. That's why we take a multi-pathway approach to electrification. Our goal is straightforward: carbon neutrality across the full vehicle life cycle.
The direction of travel is absolutely right, but the reality today is the market is softer than expected. Heavy discounting, weaker residual values and lower than expected demand tell us that consumers need more confidence before this really scales.
With new brands launching at both speed and with very serious intent into a very open UK market, we're nearing a tipping point where supply-side factors, greater market coverage and consumer choice are actively driving demand. Great, so you can now see the names, the illustrious names on the chart here. Welcome to my panelists. Great to have you all here with us to share some insights with our audience. So I'm going to start with the first question to kick us off with positioning how far we are down this sort of journey, this rather pothole journey towards 2030, the challenging route that I described earlier, seeing where we are today, what the outlook is going forward. And since you're sitting next to me, Yuri, I'm going to throw that question to you first.
Thank you. I think from an industry point of view and from a manufacturer point of view, all of us have done a pretty good job so far of developing products. If I take Stellantis, we have over 60 products on the market in the UK, fully electrified. We have our own electric vehicle manufacturing plant in the UK, building our small vans and soon to build a medium-sized van as well. And so we've done quite a lot, I think, in terms of that journey. We were compliant in 24, so which is good. We will be compliant in 25 and so on. But the cost of that compliance and reading some of that data, I think, is misunderstood. There's a reason why those residual values plummet so quickly, and that's because we're pushing harder than the natural level of demand. And so I think we've done quite a number of positive steps to bring in the product to the market, but I think a common message of the day, right, the 7 mandate needs to be more aligned to where the consumer demand is.
And Nicole, you've got a very electrified range of vehicles at Volvo, so you're well down that journey. How do you perceive the outlook as it stands today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, as leaders in electrification, we started this journey a long time ago. So the ZEV mandate is coming up continually today, as I expected. I think the point is that you don't just decide to do electric cars tomorrow. You have to have set up a while ago. So our ambitions have been clear from the start. We're making good progress from a global perspective. We're over half of our electrified products sold are electrified. So we're making really good traction. And the UK is particularly important because we're the third biggest market now. So there's a lot of focus in this area. I take that responsibility really quite seriously because the mandate assumes that we wouldn't do that without it, and we actually would. It would be part of our journey anyway. And I guess the point that we're at now is we're not just bringing out electrified products. We're also starting to think really from a consumer-centric point of view. So with our EX60, starting from a position of no compromise, starting to think from a consumer perspective, what are their anxieties and how do we make sure one by one we tackle those? And that's how that car was built. So over 500 miles of range, price parity to hybrid of the similar segment price, and also not compromising on tech, in fact, accelerating that. So we're making really good progress. I think the point comes that we can't measure that based on registrations. We need to look at underlying demand, and that's not quite where we need it to be.
Fair to say that is one of the most hotly anticipated cars of the current environment and a rethought design process which stands it in good stead. And Richard, if I can come to you on Toyota's journey so far in terms of broader electrification and a pure electric and then outlook going forward, what's your take on things?
Yeah, I mean, as you saw in the video, you know, our approach is multi-pathway, combination of battery electric, plug-in hybrid, and fuel cell. And of course, that supports carbon reduction. In fact, you know, globally by 2030, our average emissions will reduce by 33%, and by 2035 by 50%. So it's a huge journey that we've been on. And finally, you know, our focus is that we leave no customer behind. We deliver the right product to the right market and give the customer the vehicle that they want. And, you know, finally on this point, you know, we've got a clear target from Toyota Motor Europe, and that is by 2040, we will be carbon neutral across scopes 1, 2, and 3. So making zero-emission vehicles in a zero-emission plant with zero-emission logistics.
And those hybrids that you touched on, Toyota have been known for their great hybrids for a long time. Many more brands coming into that space now with some great products too, with longer sort of pure battery ranges. Do you see that as a challenge or as a spur to that side of the market that encourages more people to think of your products as well?
Well, I think hybrid is still, you know, very much in high demand. I don't see so much of a threat from other hybrid.
It's in soaring demand, I agree. Definitely it's a stepping stone for many people, isn't it? So definitely a useful opportunity for more people to go towards the electrified journey, if not purely electric, which I guess is your point, that there's different ways of getting to the end goal that we're working towards. And Paddy, coming to you last but not least, talked about hotly anticipated cars. You've got in the J and in the LR, some very hotly anticipated cars out there. So tell us more about your
I guess to pick up on the theme, we're really clear on the destination, right? We are electrifying all of our brands. We are spending billions and billions of pounds in the UK electrifying our brands. We're already retooling plants. We're upskilling over 20,000 employees, both from our manufacturing side, our engineering side, but also in our retail network. We have plug-in hybrid versions available at all of our current models, and they are very successful and create a great bridging strategy to electrifying our brands. And for us, it's having the market ready to bring those electrified products to market, but be really clear they are true to the brand. So when we bring the new Jaguar to market, it is everything everyone would expect a Jaguar to be, and will bring incredible power, incredible driving dynamics. We recently just did some drives with journalists in the Arctic Circle, and Autocar said best riding car ever. So this is the extent of the engineering putting into to bring amazing cars to product, which therefore consumers want. When we bring Range Rover Electric, it will be a Range Rover. It will be probably the best ever Range Rover. It can do everything a Range Rover can do today. It just happens to be electrified. So we are clear on the destination. We need to bring great products to market, but we need the consumers to want that. So we need that environment for the consumer to accept that electrification of our products.
Yeah, I like your point about it'll be a great car, and it'll happen to be an electric car. I mean, that'll be a cause for success if you really do manage to land that point. Just coming back to the sort of premium segment that you folks are mostly in. I mean, the Jaguar product is clearly a much talked about, hotly anticipated product because of the PR that created so much buzz a year or so ago, and your Range Rover product equally. The consumer hasn't yet jumped very readily towards some of the more premium side of electric. Do you think that you've cracked that? You've got the confidence that you're arriving at the right time?
I guess it's about, with one, it's got to be a great car. So they've got to have confidence. They want the brand. It's a great car and it delivers on all the attributes they expect. But the whole ecosystem supports them. So the current market conditions we see with heavy discounting, residual value pressure, pushing the market, that knocks consumer confidence. We need to have a market that gives the consumers confidence to back the product they're choosing. We believe we'll bring our products to market when the market is ready and the consumer's ready, and we back up all of those elements they need to do. But we need the whole ecosystem to support it.
Nicole, do you have a different view on this or anything to add?
No, I agree. I just think, I say this so often, so forgive me if you've heard me, but I just think we've got to remember that this is such a significant purchase. So for us, we're changing cars all the time. We try electric, we try hybrid, and it's not a big deal. Actually, when you're deciding what your car's going to be for the next 3 years and you're hearing all different noise and chaos and price points and incentives and then punitive measures, it's a really chaotic decision to make, as well as just, you know, the whole basics of buying a car as well. So I think we've got a job to do alongside the government to make that easier and make it clearer. And I think having the cars, I think we are, I mean, you can't deny that the manufacturing side is stepping up. Ranges are getting better. I mean, when we're talking 500 miles of range, that conversation's not really a concern anymore. So that's moving us in the right direction. But we need to make sure that charging is accessible. We need to make sure the cost of it is accessible. We can't just be dismissive about people who can't charge on their driveway, because that is a real thing and it's a real barrier. So I think when it comes to it, we've got a whole product lineup that suits different needs. We're going in that direction, come what may. But the cost of it, as someone said already, the cost of it is making it really challenging for us to excel at the right pace. And I think going back to registrations, you can look at data in multiple ways. We all know that. We can tick the box about where we're getting, but underneath it all is extreme cost for us as businesses that has to have a consequence and a knock-on effect somewhere.
Yeah, we're well past those early adopters who could afford to pay or want to pay the green premium, aren't we? Moving to a slightly different point, the decarbonisation goals of the UK can only really be achieved if we go electric, but also rethink our production processes and have a fully green approach to how we build cars. And many of you are doing just that in this country, so I'll ask you that question. Before I do, I'm just going to make a little plug. Erin Baker, our editorial director, who was beaten to the first question by Ginny, her friend sitting next to her, bad luck, Erin, is putting in place at the moment some green ratings on all new car reviews that we're putting out into the market to help consumers make empowered choices about the whole of the supply chain and production process and so on of a given car, which we think is an important, growing important factor for car buyers. But perhaps, Rich, you could tell us about Toyota's approach to ensuring the cleanest possible, greenest possible production of the car.
Yeah, of course, carbon reduction activity in our manufacturing plants is not new. And since 2003, at both of our manufacturing sites, our vehicle plant in Derby, our engine plant in North Wales, we've reduced our carbon by 90%. That's through a combination of course, new technology. We're increasing renewables at our Burnaston plant from 4% to 20%. We've implemented things like energy efficient furnaces that melt our aluminium in Deeside. But it's the daily activity that's carried out by our production members that's really important and that's really accelerated that reduction. You know, Deeside will become one of the first Toyota plants globally to become carbon neutral, actually in the coming months, thanks to the establishment of an anaerobic digestion plant, which is literally on the perimeter of our site, and we're able to pipe directly to our facility green gas, and that'll be, you know, coming very, very soon. And of course, I think, you know, we talk about carbon reduction, but I think there's a strong link to circularity. One of the things that we implemented last year at our Burnaston plant, and this is again a first for Toyota globally, is the circular factory, where physically we're taking care of end-of-life vehicles. You know, why are we doing that? Of course, we're generating new skills for our members, but really it's a valuable resource. We're able to harvest valuable materials, recycle them into new parts and back into new cars. And of course, having that experience of stripping vehicles down, of course, we're extremely good at building cars, but I would say that. But, you know, that knowledge of removing parts from vehicles, understanding how they, you know, come apart from the vehicle, whether you can recycle them or not, it's a valuable source of information to feed back to our design team to make ever better cars.
And turning to you, Ulrich, I know that you're the front man of selling all the vehicles, marketing all the vehicles for Stellantis. I'm sure you know a bit more about the circularity journey that Stellantis has been on. I remember Alison Jones, who many people here will know, was the first board member with a sustainability hat on, and you've done a lot in that area. Is there anything you would like to add in the broader sense?
Yeah, I mean, not only do we manufacture electric vehicles in the UK and take some of the stuff that Richard's already spoken about in terms of green energy into that plant and reducing the carbon footprint of that plant in Ellesmere Port, but we also have as a group a really vigorous recycling routine across all of our products and see that as a business opportunity, in fact, so not just for the sake of being good for the environment, but to reuse and repurpose components across all of our vehicles, be it electric, batteries, but also conventional vehicles as well.
I think that many brands are doing a great amount of work in that area. I think it's testament to that kind of example and Richard's that we need to try and show that to more consumers, because it is the kind of thing that I think people will be making their decisions on more and more. If they see a brand that's greener, a product that's greener, and if you're looking to go electric, that is going to be, I think, an increasingly useful factor to bear in mind. Bringing us back to the sort of broader state of electrification and the EV sales that we're seeing at the moment, the successes and the challenges, I'd like to talk about that for a moment with you all. So I think in a way they're almost the same. The successes, you can often quote them in terms of penetration levels, sales numbers. We've heard many examples from Kia, from Martin, from everybody so far today, from Mike, of course, as well. But the successes come at a cost. The positioning of cars in the market, we've seen when they are priced at parity, they sell really well. 7 of the top 10 sellers at the moment are at a price parity point, virtually at 5-6% or so the wrong way. Some are even actually at price parity to their ICE equivalent with the ECG. The ECG did lead to a sustained increase in interest from consumers in these products because they were encouraged to think this is what they should do. We were then a little bit confused. We need certainty and consistency, as touched on a few times, by the paper mile. So that, yeah, the successes come at a cost because we have to pay for those incentives to get the cars at the right price. How do you see that? I'll start again with you, Ulrich. What's the outlook?
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good point that Nicole made it in terms of in terms of how we look at statistics and data and can create a false impression of what we're achieving. Because, you know, if you're manufacturing an electric car in a high carbon manufacturing location somewhere in the other side of the world and bringing it to the UK, it's testament to us exporting our emissions. So are we really green at that point, or are we really doing a misjustice to our future generations in terms of the true reduction in carbon. I think the challenge for us is that we have a range of products that start from £15,000, so we already have a small car that is affordable, way cheaper than any or many petrol cars on the marketplace new. We have a BSUV from Vauxhall in Frontera that is priced below the petrol equivalent, and we're seeing good volumes of return in terms of on those vehicles. But it comes back to the fundamental point, and this is the bit of data that isn't public and cannot be public for obvious reasons, but you're not able to profit from making and selling an electric vehicle in the UK market today. And so there will be the odd exception, but the majority will be a situation where we're investing so heavily that most of the vehicles sold will probably be loss-making. If you're in that scenario and you carry on increasing the number of BEVs that through a force of supply, like the SEV mandate is driving the industry, then we are businesses. And so businesses want to invest, of course, but you decide to invest where you can make a return. And if you cannot make the return in that country, then the ability of a company to invest and create the growth that the government is looking for in the UK is absent. So I think we are coming up towards a fundamental crossroads in this pathway where we need to make some very quick decisions. A review next year is too late. The review needs to happen now in order for us to make the right decisions on investments. Because, the other important point, I guess, from this side of the industry is we're not deciding on investments for 27 now. We're not deciding on investments for 28, 29, 30 now. Our decisions on investments now are post-2030, quite a few years in advance of that. But at this point in the UK, we don't know what technology we can use yet. So let alone whether you're able to make any money in the UK market. So those are really where the paths at the moment are taking the industry to a position of unsustainability in the UK.
And Nicole, I'll come to you on this one, because the EX60 that you've touched on already stands out to me as one of the cars where I've heard a lot about the way it's been redesigned, the gigacasting approach, the cell-to-body battery, the software-defined sort of components of drive-by-wire and so on. By all accounts, a 30-odd% reduction in cost compared to sort of equivalent models and previous methods. So you've rethought the methods fundamentally, and it feels like to get to this vital price parity that we know is what drives demand, you need really, like Jörg says, to be able to produce a cost parity so that you've got a margin parity. Otherwise, as a business, as Jörg says, it's not going to work. Yeah. How do you see that journey? Is it
I think
tenable?
The thing that we should start with is that electric cars are better. Once people drive them, they really love them. So I think that's the bit that we're missing, because we're all in this spiral of the cost of it, and it's a very important one, the cost of selling electric cars and the discounts and the hyper competition and all of that, when actually we should really be thinking about the investments we've made as businesses for this advanced technology. And that's one of the great things about the car you referenced, because the EX60 has been built from that. And by the way, that was a few years ago. We didn't just do it yesterday. So all of the thinking has gone into that to make sure it is a better proposition for consumers. The last thing anybody wants to do is bring a car out that is that much of an investment, that much technologically advanced, and then start discounting from the beginning. It's not the premise of what we set out to do, as you say. And actually, nor should it be, because it's been carefully crafted to offer a different benefit. So when it comes down to how we think about this, the discounting piece is a race to the bottom. The survey that was quoted around people liking the ZEV mandate, because there's a lot of choice at very low cost at the moment, but it is unsustainable. And we talk about survival of the fittest being in the market at the end of it. That's not how we wanted to build this industry. So I think we need to focus on the fantastic cars that we are investing in and making sure we're having the demand catch up with supply.
Yep, a great point. I definitely understand that challenge, and I think it's even exacerbated in terms of planning further ahead. Maybe coming to you on this one, Paddy, you've got a world context which is ever-changing, and touched on by Micah first thing this morning. You'd ideally like to be selling the same model with the same sort of, at least, platforms across every market. That context, you guys sell a lot in the US, that market's got very tough. China's extremely challenging. How do you look at things now?
Yeah, so I think if it comes back to clarity, consistency, right? So to Nicole and Yurik's point in terms of our investment plans are well into the next decade. So we need clarity and consistency. When we don't have that show up, when it's inconsistent, so we've got a very ambitious ZEV mandate, ECG helping to drive that appeal, and then we've got the EVED that is proposed to come at a critical moment.
And then you've got confusion, haven't you?
You've got confusion, consumers will hesitate, and consumers hesitate, we hesitate, therefore you get an uncertain environment. We need a long-term consistency, and we have to recognise we're part of a global ecosystem. So for us, we produce most of our vehicles in the UK for global export, therefore we have to recognise that different parts of the world are moving at different pace, and then therefore how do we keep the UK competitive to all those things in terms of green energy, energy costs, upskilling the UK, all the reasons why we want to make this place amazing needs long-term thinking, long-term consistency, long-term clarity. Then we can make really powerful investments to help transform UK manufacturing, but also then how we come to market for our UK customers as well.
And lots of learnings, I guess, across the industry about how other people are doing things and so on. And I think Martin touched on the partnerships point a minute ago. And you've mentioned the Leap Motor example, Yurik. Something you could touch on regarding how that helps you, that learning, picking up ideas from other parts of the world and embedding that into your process and so on?
Yeah, I think no doubt that, I think the point was made earlier on, or a question was asked from the audience actually, from the trading arrangements that were with China when they had to share technology, and it's our way, I guess, of getting a very quick step forward in terms of understanding the technology, the cost bases, and how we can bring more and more products to the market that are attractive for the consumer, but at the same time create a business viability for us as manufacturers. So Leap Motor operates at an incredible pace for us by comparison to maybe a traditional kind of Western world vehicle manufacturer. 2 models in the first year, but that will be 5/6 models this year already on the marketplace, priced at a level that is incredibly tough for the rest of the market to compete with. And so we are talking C-segment SUVs from £299 deposit, £299 a month for the B10.
Sounds like a sales pitch here, if anybody's
that is the sales pitch. Well, you had one.
I did tee it up for you.
But indeed, yeah, no, that is priced at that point right in the heart, if not way better than some ICE models that are available. And so again, I think it's a really important point as well, is that we have to evolve into this world where we are talking about electric cars for the love of having an electric car and the fact they do drive great, and that, importantly, one of the things that we must maintain, I think, as an industry, I've made this point numerous times in the past, is that the fact you move to an electric powertrain doesn't mean you have to be Magnolia in terms of the way the car drives. And so yes, you can price aggressively, but if there's no soul, if there's no enjoyment from driving, I'm not sure I want to be part of that kind of motoring future. I enjoy driving my car, and so it's great to see cars from Alfa Romeo fully electric that still have the Alfa Romeo DNA in terms of the way that they drive as well.
Thank you. Just coming now to the sort of broader context of how to make this transition really work. Pragmatic sort of suggestions about what may be useful. To give you an example, we've done some research just recently titled No Driver Left Behind. We did some previously that showed that women were feeling left behind by the car buying experience of EVs, which is a big concern for us all, I'm sure, and something I know everyone's working on very hard. But more recently, that same research updated showed that rural buyers and lower income buyers were feeling left behind by the transition. There's a point that's been touched on several times about the equity of charging. 5%, 20% VAT is almost the tip of the iceberg. The actual public charging, if you've only got that, is far more expensive. So, Nicole, what ideas would you have in terms of what you'd like to see the government do or anybody else do to support the work that you're doing and the investments that you're making?
Firstly, what you've just said, I think, leads back to the confusion point on both points, whether it's the female piece feeling like they don't understand how to get the best out of the experience because it's not an enjoyable one, and I'm certainly at the forefront of representing that. And I think when it comes to the rural piece around charging it, again, it's cost, it's confusion because the total cost of ownership is not clear. And it goes back to the point we made earlier around there's all this noise around the actual buying a car is cheaper because of the discounts for ZEV, and then there's taxes coming from the government in another way. So when you wrap it all up, it just creates hesitation. And that's the bit where people decide, I'm not going to do it yet. You referenced it earlier. My next car will be an electric, and who knows if it will. The point being, they're not ready yet for various reasons. So I think that in terms of what we do, I think you're going to hear this multiple times today. The direction is clear. We're all aligned. If the mandate went away tomorrow, certainly from a Volvo perspective, nothing would change. All the things we've talked about from the circular economy bit, that's not being mandated. We're doing it anyway. It's part of what we need to do to be responsible. So I think what we need to be clear on is, when it comes down to it, there's a lot of listening, but it needs to be with an intent to understand rather than an intent to answer to the same narrative. Things have changed. Things have moved on. The review does need to happen sooner. I think we're all aligned on that. And that's the point around, let's listen to what lots of people are saying who are connected to the industry. We need to properly digest what has happened with a lot of moving parts over the last few years. Yep. And the reality is, you'll see it everywhere. There's cost implications, there's headcount implications. The money for the tech has been spent. So then having the fines imminent now is a really scary place to be. And you know, it comes down to trust underneath it all. If they were softened, removed, whatever, we would still move towards that ambition. It's the right thing to do. And I just say, if I was able to have a conversation, which I actually am doing with Keir Mather very soon, is we need to think about the consumer at the end of this. We need to think about the person who's making that decision, how we make it more straightforward, and how we make it more joined up. Because at the moment, there's government noise, there's manufacturer noise, and the two things need to be more closely aligned.
Paddy, coming to you, communications, like Nicole says, policy, infrastructure, what do you want? What do you need to see?
It's the whole ecosystem, right? To Nicole's point, we need to stop the confusion. We need to stop the kind of give with one hand, take with the other. We are all invested. We are all on this destination. The product is coming. The brand transformations, the experience, all those things are going to come. We need to just do it at the right pace because the consumer needs to be ready. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, they aren't.
Before we come to questions in a moment from the audience, please prepare them, get yourself ready. Coming to a last theme around industrial strategy, and the government's plans there involve encouraging employers to hopefully boost the employment levels we see in the industry, to boost the numbers of cars produced. There's a 1.3 million number I think we're aiming for, but we're quite a long way from it. What do you think we need, Richard, in terms of support to make sure that the UK is a prime location for electrified vehicle production and supply chain?
I think the first thing to say is we welcome the industrial strategy, and absolutely it's needed. You know, I'd probably talk about, I'll mention three key areas. One is around energy. You know, of course, our energy costs have more than doubled since COVID. You know, we're one of the highest in Europe, second to Germany. So support in the area of energy cost reduction for all of manufacturing and supply chain, I think is imperative. The second area is around skills. Of course, the skills that we've got now are not necessarily what we're going to need in the future. So you know, a huge amount of support in that area. Of course, at Toyota, we've got our own apprenticeship academy on site. We're training our own people, you know, hundreds of people. We're giving, you know, engineering skills to come into the industry. And probably the third area is around supply chain support. Of course, as we go through this huge transformation, we say once in a lifetime, once in a century, the change towards electrification. You know, volume is reducing. How a volume reduces, it impacts tier 1, tier 2 suppliers. So, you know, support in that area to grow the supply, or keep the supply base in the UK, and then hopefully grow it in the future.
And just really quickly, because we'll come to questions, anything to add from Stellantis' point of view? You've made some great investment news recently.
Yes, and I think, you know, again, I would echo the fact that the industrial strategy is hugely important for the UK. What we need to see is facilitation of us being able to deliver the industrial strategy and the ambition of that industrial strategy. And it is the factors that's already been spoken about by Richard, so cost of energy, skills, but also creating the right level of demand. Because even if we get to a position from a UK point of view where we have an improvement in cost of energy, the cost of manufacturing here is considerably more expensive than it is in some of the other Western European countries. And what I don't think we realise enough, certainly in terms of leadership in the UK, is that we are in a competition, we're in a global competition, we're in a European competition, and there are decisions being made about where and when you manufacture. And so if we want to be, to grow the manufacturing base in the UK, then one, we have to be competitive in terms of those energy costs and costs of labour in the UK, but more importantly, create the demand. And I would have loved somebody to have asked the question of the Minister this morning of what was the level of public procurement electric vehicles last year or in 2024, and did that match the SEV mandate? I asked the question because
Sounds like you know the answer.
Yes. and I wonder whether it will be ahead of the SEV mandate this year or behind the SEV mandate this year.
Sounds like a challenge as well. Fair one. Fair one. Great. Well, listen, thank you for those answers. Time for a couple of questions. Very quick hand up first down here at the front. So if we could get a microphone over here, and then ladies in the second row as well.
Hi, Alex from Wolf Power Club. I love the optimism about electric cars. We really appreciate the investment all of you have put into it. But I just wanted to understand then the reality, and it's like, massive congratulations to JLR winning Dakar, but you won it with a 4.4 litre V8. Toyota have just released the GT GR, a 4-litre V8, and Stellantis obviously made the decision to bring some diesel vehicles back in due to customer demand. I haven't got a stat to throw.
I was going to say, I might get away with this.
But I'm just wondering, therefore, where are we in the reality? Because I know my desire is probably for an Octa when I see something like that, rather than an electric version. So I was just wondering where the reality is between those headlines and the positivity we've heard in the room today.
Paddy, you got that one? I'm going to throw that in your way.
Yeah, so first year of entry into Dakar and won it. So that's something to be very proud of for a defender. The reality is it comes back to where is the consumer at. Yep, so we're really clear our investments, we're electrify all our brands, we're going to carbon net zero, all those things will happen. But we have to then therefore develop an industrial strategy that allows flexibility. So our platforms allow flexibility between combustion, plug-in hybrid and full electric, and then therefore we can work towards matching that consumer demand whilst ensuring in the UK we've got the market that works, whilst to the point earlier, we are a UK manufacturer serving the world. We've got different regions completely moving at different levels, if not moving back away from electrification. So we have to work to where our brand is now and where we are now in terms of consumer, but we've got a clear plan to electrify. That is not in doubt. And if further testament to that is our sister company Agratas is building a £4 billion gigafactory in Somerset that we will be an anchor customer to. So our electrification is happening. We just need to, and our brands will be fully electrified over time.
Thanks, Paddy. I think it's fair to say it's not a flick of a switch kind of thing, is it? Ginny was again really quick, so give us a name to whom you want to put the question to, and a quick question, Ginny.
I'll let you decide who the question goes to. Yeah, so Ginny from Electrifying. I think if you look at the data that I've seen, many manufacturers, VW, BMW, Renault, Geely, of course, parent company of Volvo, BYD, ended 2026 with a really healthy surplus of ZEV mandate credits. Does this not suggest that actually the problem's not with the mandate? If you're producing great electric cars, they're being sold. And isn't it literally as simple as that?
Well, Nicole, who wants to take that one?
I'm more than happy to. I think you've got to look at cars and vans combined, of course, and there's clearly in 24 the market, there was a surplus of credits. In 25, a similar situation. As you move forward, every brand has to be compliant of its own accord, and so a number of the credits that are available within the marketplace will disappear. So if you sell more than 2,500 vehicles in the UK, you have to achieve the SEV mandate. By 2030, therefore, every manufacturer, even if you sell solely electric vehicles, you have no credits to be able to sell anybody else. Then you've got a secondary point, which is the economics. And so there are some scenarios where electric vehicles are being sold and we can make money. But I suspect when I look at the discounting in the industry, that it's not possible for it to be a sustainable level of push market that we have today to achieve the 7 mandates. So none of us, I don't think, none of us are advocating to move away from decarbonising transport, to move away from the transition to BEV vehicles. We've made the investment, but the pace of the legislation has to match nearer the consumer demand. Otherwise, we are going to kill the transition, in fact.
Thanks, Eric. Erin, I'm afraid you're going to have to ask the question in a minute in the break. I do apologise. We are out of time. Lots of questions here. I'm sure our guests will enjoy answering questions in a moment, though. But I think it's fair to say that we've had a great discussion that's continued what's been shared earlier this morning. A lot of people are making a lot of progress, investing a lot of money, making a lot of positive moves in the right direction, but there are a heck of a lot of challenges right now. So the direction of travel, the ultimate goal, we're clear on that. The speed is maybe the challenging takeout we take, at least I take from this discussion. So please join me in thanking, I beg your pardon, our panelists for a great discussion. Thank you.